Have you ever wondered if you're occupying more space in someone's thoughts than they're willing to admit? Why is it that sometimes, despite what they say or how they act, you can sense that special someone just can't stop thinking about you? The truth is, our minds are fascinating landscapes of emotion and attachment that don't always align with what we show on the surface. The psychological imprints we leave on others often run deeper than words can express. Today, we're exploring the subtle yet revealing signs that you're living rent-free in her mind, those psychological breadcrumbs that tell you you've become a permanent resident in her thought. Let's dive into these 10 psychological signs that reveal when you've created a lasting impression that she just can't shake. Sign number 1, she remembers the small details. When someone catalogues the minute details of your life, not just your birthday, but the name of your childhood pet, how you take your coffee, or that obscure band you mentioned once in passing, that's not just good listening. That's a mind that's processing you at a deeper level. Our brains don't waste valuable mental resources remembering trivial details about people who don't matter to us. When she brings up something you mentioned weeks ago in casual conversation, "Hey, wasn't that presentation you were nervous about today? How did it go?" She's revealing that your experiences have been categorized as important in her mental filing system. Sign number 2, her body language transforms when you enter the room. Our bodies often betray what our words try to conceal. When you walk into a room and suddenly her posture straightens, her eyes brighten, or she unconsciously adjusts her hair, you're witnessing what psychologists call heightened somatic awareness, her body instinctively preparing itself for someone who matters. The subtle flush of her cheeks, the quick dilation of her pupils, the slight shift in her position to face you more directly, these aren't conscious choices. They're the physical manifestations of her nervous system responding to someone who triggers an emotional reaction. Watch closely the next time you enter her sphere. Those first 3 seconds often contain more truth than the next 3 hours of conversation. Sign number 3, she finds ways to stay connected, even when it's unnecessary. In today's world of endless distraction, how someone chooses to spend their attention is perhaps the most honest expression of their priority. When she creates seemingly innocent reasons to reach out, sharing a meme that reminded her of you, asking a question she could easily Google, or commenting on your social media post within minutes of you sharing them. These aren't coincidence. It's her mind creating justifications to maintain contact, to keep the connection alive, to ensure you don't fade from her awareness. The frequency of these casual check-ins is often more telling than their content. A quick, "this made me think of you" text reveals volumes about where her thoughts naturally gravitate when you're not around. Sign number 4, she mirrors your language and mannerism. Have you noticed her picking up phrases you use regularly? Does she unconsciously adopt your gestures or speaking patterns? This psychological phenomenon, known as mirroring, runs deeper than simple imitation. When our brains are deeply attuned to someone, we begin to unconsciously synchronize with them. It's a primitive bonding mechanism that happens below the threshold of awareness. This mirroring isn't manipulation. It's one of the most authentic forms of psychological connection. Our brains don't bother synchronizing with people who don't matter to us. When your words start coming out of her mouth, you've transcended mere memory and become part of her own self-expression. Sign number 5, she's hyper-aware of your other relationship. Notice how she reacts when other people in your life come up in conversation, particularly other potential romantic interests. Does she suddenly become more attentive? Does she ask seemingly casual follow-up questions? This heightened awareness isn't just curiosity, it's her mind performing a complex social calculation, assessing potential competition or threats to her connection with you. Sometimes this manifests as subtle changes in her tone when certain names are mentioned. Other times, it's more direct. She might find ways to emphasize her own connection to you in response, or suddenly share a memory of the two of you. Pay attention to these reactions. They're windows into how her mind organizes its emotional priorities, with you firmly in the center. Sign number 6, she creates inside jokes and shared references. When she initiates private jokes or references experiences only the two of you understand, she's building a psychological bubble that includes you and excludes others, even if just momentarily. These shared references aren't just fun, they're powerful psychological bonding mechanisms that create a sense of us separate from everyone else. Every time she references that thing that happened or gives you that knowing look that says you get it, even if no one else does, she's revealing how frequently you feature in her private thought. Sign number 7, she notices changes in you that others miss. Has she ever commented on a subtle change in your appearance that nobody else mentioned? Or perhaps she detected a shift in your mood when you thought you were hiding it well. This heightened perception isn't coincidental. It's the result of her brain maintaining a detailed, constantly updated model of who you are. When she says, "you seem different today," or "is that a new shirt?" It brings out your eyes. She's revealing just how detailed her mental representation of you actually is. This level of attention requires consistent mental processing happening in the background of her daily life. You're not just passing through her thoughts, you've become a reference point against which she measures changes. Sign number 8, she brings you up in conversations with others. When you hear from mutual friends that she mentioned you in conversations where you weren't present, you're receiving powerful third-party evidence of your place in her mental landscape. We primarily talk about what occupies our thought. When someone consistently brings you into conversation, sharing your opinions or relating stories that involve you, they're revealing who populates their inner world. This is especially significant when there was no practical reason to include you in the discussion. If she's bringing you up organically in contexts where you're not directly relevant, you've transcended being just a person in her life. You've become a lens through which she processes other experiences. Sign number 9, she shows emotional synchronization with your experience. When your bad day genuinely dampens her mood, or your success brings her genuine joy that seems disproportionate to the actual event, you're witnessing emotional synchronization, one of the deepest forms of psychological connection. Notice how she responds when you share personal news. Is her reaction measured and appropriate, or does she seem to absorb your emotional state as if it were her own? We don't synchronize emotionally with people who occupy only the periphery of our concern. This level of emotional mirroring happens only when someone has created a direct pathway to our core emotional process. When your wins feel like her wins and your struggles become her struggles, you're experiencing one of the most authentic signs of psychological intimacy. Sign number 10, she defends or supports you when you're not around. Perhaps the most powerful indicator that you've taken up permanent residence in her thoughts is when she advocates for you in your absence. When mutual friends report that she defended your perspective in a discussion, corrected misconceptions about you, or simply spoke highly of you when there was nothing for her to gain, you're seeing the ultimate expression of psychological investment. We only defend people who matter to us. Stepping into potential social conflict requires a level of commitment that we reserve for those who've become extensions of ourselves. When someone champions you in rooms you don't occupy, they're not just thinking about you occasionally. They've integrated you into their own sense of what matters. These signs aren't about feeding your ego or playing mind game. They're windows into the authentic human connection that sometimes runs deeper than words can express. Understanding these psychological indicators helps us recognize genuine connection in a world where words and actions don't always align. Sometimes the people who matter most to us are still learning how to express it directly. True connection isn't about tricks or techniques. It's about being authentically yourself and creating enough psychological safety that both people can gradually lower the drawbridges to their inner world. So the next time you wonder where you stand with someone special, look beyond the words to these deeper psychological signs. They often tell a story far more honest than what either of you might be ready to say out loud. Because at the end of the day, the mind knows what it values, even when the words haven't caught up yet. Thank you for listening. Until next time, keep noticing the subtle ways we write ourselves into each other's stories.